The following program may contain coarse language, violence, nudity, mature subject matter, or scenes which may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone at xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, Xzone Radio TV. And we're coming to you tonight on the X Zone Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, and Channel 54 on Simul TV. My guest this hour, X Zone Nation, is Dr. Brenda Shoshanna. We're going to be talking to her about Zen. And joining me now from the city that never sleeps is Dr. Shoshanna. And Dr. Brenda, how are you, dear?
I'm very well, thank you. Lovely to be here with you.
Thank you very much for joining us. Tell me, before we get going and talk about Zen, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've spent many years working as a psychologist, and I've been a Zen practitioner for almost 48 years now. Mm-hmm. I found the practice when I was quite young, found a book in my neighborhood, and this is quite a long time ago. And the moment I read it, I didn't understand what was in it, but I could not put it down. I was thrilled, excited. I just knew intuitively that this is right. I kept saying, this speaks to me deeply. And so most of my life I've lived as a writer, psychologist, but primarily as a Zen practitioner. Most of my work revolves around that.
What is Zen?
That's a wonderful question. It's an age-old question, and it's actually a koan. It cannot be answered in a logical way or in an analytical way using regular language, because all of Zen is a practice which takes you out of your intellectual head and into your actual life and opens your heart and opens your mind so that you can live really fully and truly a very authentic life, but touching many dimensions simultaneously.
So how come we can't describe it? This is, you just use many words to describe it.
Well, I was speaking around the edges of it. What they mean is if you just describe it, it's like putting it in a box or limiting it or creating ideas in people's minds, fantasies or images of it. Because Zen is a direct experience of who you are, of what your life is, and of what's possible.
Where did Zen originate from?
Well, originally it came from the Buddha. It came from Buddhism, and he, of course, was from India, but Zen itself came from China, basically originally, to Japan, and on like that. And now it's here in the West, very, 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 very deeply here in the West.
How come if it's so deeply embedded in the West very few people hear about it?
Oh, that really? I thought it was quite popular now, quite well known now.
Not really.
No, really?
No.
Well, but now in this day and age, I'm speaking of America, particularly of the United States. There are many. Well, I started in 1972 my practice, but now compared to then, there are so many Zen centers and groups all over the country. But maybe I guess people don't really know about it elsewhere as much as I think they do here. It's very much a practice. What Zen is, it's very much a practice which actually answers most of your life questions for you by itself. And
why would we need an Eastern philosophy in order to answer our own questions about our lives?
Look at how mixed up and confused we are now. The point of Zen is
Hmm.
that it's not really a philosophy. I mean, there is Zen philosophy around, but Zen practice is not a philosophy. It's beyond philosophy. It's an actual experience, a direct experience of what's really life-giving,
Hmm.
meaningful, and real in the world, including this dimension and many others which we live in simultaneously. So it's quite counterintuitive to the way most of us spend our lives. So maybe that's why it's not as well known as one might think.
Is there a certain type of person or personality that would be drawn towards Zen?
Very good question, because I've thought about that a lot myself too. And yes, I think yes, definitely so. I remember the people that I personally interacted with and met at the Zendo were very different from, in my experience, of the ones in general that I knew in my life. I think these are people who kind of really want more quiet and really value kind of an independence rather than getting an answer from someone else or leaning on someone else or following along with the main current of thought.
Hmm.
They kind of want to find out for themselves. I remember that's the first thing, one of the first things I heard my teacher say. He said, when you come here, we do not ask you to believe anything. Just come and find out for yourself. That really moved me. That meant a lot to me.
I'm having a problem trying to understand why someone would have to go somewhere else to understand themselves.
Well, there's all kinds of levels of understanding yourself. There's the psychological level.
Hmm.
Excuse me. And I worked as a psychologist
Right.
for many, many years. And that's valid. And it's completely valid work, but it only takes you so far. When they say understand yourself, they don't mean psychologically. What they mean is to know where you've come from and where you're going in life.
So there seems to be a bit of mysticism added into Zen.
Oh,
And
yeah.
does this have something to do with past lives?
Sure. That's something that does come up, although people don't dwell on it in the
Mhm.
teachings, but yes, of course. I agree with that. I think many times people who do come to practice have come from, we could call it karma, we could call it from a momentum from other lives, and it also does, yeah, when you sit a lot, many times people do remember their past lives or have strong intuitions about things like that.
How do we know Zen is real and it's not just a side effect of who you are?
It is who you are.
So why would we need a philosophy in order to tell us who we are?
Well, it doesn't tell you. It's not a philosophy.
Well, what is it?
What it is it's a practice of sitting and acquiring for yourself a
Mhm.
direct experience of
So
your
what?
life and of others.
So why would you have to go and be part of a Zen group in order to do this when many people I know do it themselves at home?
Maybe they do, and that's great. But when you do go with a group, what we
Mhm.
do, it's a practice of hours and hours often of sitting quietly in a certain posture, and having others sitting with you is very helpful. It sustains you, it gives you a lot of energy. And you also learn a lot from your interactions with the other sitters in the Zendo. It's called the Sangha. It's a long tradition of having a Sangha. And it's not that anybody tells you who you are,
Mhm.
it's just a way of knowing yourself differently. Zen practice also creates a great deal of sense of strength, a sense of confidence, a sense of connection. It takes a lot of feelings of loneliness and separateness away. You begin to feel more and more connected to the earth, to the sky, to your life in a more profound way. then I noticed as a psychologist that people
Hmm.
feel. Um,
Well, as a psychologist, you saw people who had issues, who had problems,
that's
because
right.
if they didn't have these issues or problems, they wouldn't go to a psychologist.
That's true.
It seems that this is a practice. Can I call it a practice?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. This is a practice for the weak of mind.
Oh, the Zen, no, just the opposite. I would say it takes a tremendous amount of strength and courage to be able to really look at yourself in this way and to be able to face certain things about yourself and to become really a good friend to yourself and to life itself. It takes a lot of strength to do this and a lot of courage and a lot of devotion too. There's a whole quality of devotion that's very present in this practice, devotion
Hmm.
to life itself and to wanting to live the best possible life you can and being of the greatest help that you can also. Because
So
that's, yeah,
it sounds like a religion to me.
some people call it a religion.
I get the same feeling when I go to church every Sunday.
Yeah, it comes out of Buddhism. That, yeah, you could call it a religion.
I don't know if it comes out of Buddhism. I call it comes from Christianity. It comes from God. It comes from Christ. I
Oh,
don't
right.
I
Oh,
don't
oh, right.
consider
But
Buddha to be a god or a
no, I didn't
Christ.
mean that. I didn't mean that. No, I work very closely
Mhm,
with a Jesuit priest who is also a Zen master.
mhm.
There's no conflict between this and any religion. I'm very glad you brought that point up. In fact, he's a wonderful. He's almost in his 90s now, but there's a whole stream of people, of Christians, devoted Christians. And in this particular community, there are many women who've been nuns. They're still very devoted. And they find this practice makes their prayer deeper and their ability to follow the scriptures and be connected to God. You could use that word, but they do use that word, and I use that word. That is absolutely not, it's not in conflict with this practice at all.
Stand by. We've got to take our first break. Exxon Nation, Dr. Brenda Shoshanna is our special guest. www.brendashoshanna.com. We'll be back after this break. Don't go away. And this portion of the Exxon is being brought to you by our good friends at Beautiful Mind Coffee. Visit them online at www.beautifulmindcoffee.ca. We're talking with Dr. Brenda Shoshanna. We're talking about Zen. And what did you learn from your 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 getting into Zen?
Well, I became much more loving and much more accepting of all people, including myself.
Mhm.
I was much better therapist with my patients because I was really much more able to be quiet and really listen to them without interjecting on my own views and opinions. I was more present to them. And I also, as I practiced year after year, I began to really enjoy giving more than receiving. Actually, you could say that as you practice, those teachings of Jesus and of the church become actualized. They become more and more real. I've seen that in many of the people who do practice for a while. It becomes just a desire to give more and more without looking for what you're getting back in return.
Well, the Bible says it's better to give than to receive.
Well,
Number one, and number two, if it's if all these, if it if if taking these Zen courses or being part of the Zen, something doesn't resonate right with me here.
yeah, it doesn't. Well, it's not for you.
And I'm having a problem understanding why somebody would need to participate in this. For example, the friar or the monk or the nuns. Why would they need to get involved and use Zen in order to get themselves more spiritually in depth? I don't understand that.
Well, what I've heard from many people, they have
Hmm.
said that um, not everybody. I mean, I can't speak for everybody,
Right, I understand that.
but for many people who go to more mainstream churches or
Hmm.
synagogues or mosques or whatever, that they might feel that, it's more that something is missing for them there in terms of the spirit, in terms of it seems more like a business or more like an institution, and they want to have a more intimate experience of God. Actually, one of the people in Father Kennedy's Kennedy Roshi's group is a priest right now. He has a congregation in the city, and he spent many years in a Christian monastery in silence, doing something very similar. And he said that once he began, and now he also includes Zen practice. Certainly not a weak-minded man, far from it. But for him, it lit a fire for him, not for everybody. This is certainly not a path for everyone. But he found, and many of the people that at certain points, they find the traditional ways too authoritarian for them. They don't want to have to just follow what's being taught. They like more freedom to explore for themselves, or they find it more like a business rather than a spiritual place, and or political or whatever. I'm not saying that politics doesn't go on in the Zendos. It does, and it goes on everywhere, and in the business aspect goes on there as well. So, but that's just part of human nature. It's wherever people are, you find that. I think a deeper answer to it's a good question. I think a deeper answer is that just different people have different mentalities and different hearts, and different things help them to become who they are and to become the best they can be.
So as somebody who is having problems finding out who they are, what their purpose is, what their life goal is, would they benefit from Zen practice?
Absolutely. If I have to say if they were drawn to it, and truthfully, many people are not, and they're not. It's not for them, and that's fine. There's no missionary kind of work, nothing like that at all. The doors are just. There's a saying in Zen: "If you come, we welcome you. If you leave, we do not pursue." It's just. It's for certain. It's not for everybody. But if someone did feel a connection with that particular practice, it could be a great benefit.
How do you know? How do you know if you have the calling from Zen? Well, how does a person know that Zen is for them?
That's a great question. Well, they would be drawn to maybe read about it, and then they might want to find a group. It's very interesting because this day and age, everything is online. All of the different Zen centers from all over the places, all over the world, are online. So if a person wants to discover it, they can explore many places and many teachers online. They can just look it up, see who they might resonate with or might not. They could just spend a little while online listening. Even on YouTube, you could find many talks about different teachers. Yeah. See if you connect with it. See if it speaks to you. In fact, one group might not, or one teacher might not, and another one might. So it does take some time to explore, an exploration, it's an adventure to explore it and to see. I mean, I would say if someone is born in a religion and they feel good there and they feel wonderful, that's such a blessing. That's a great gift. And they feel at home in that community. It's wonderful. And I think many in this day and age haven't had that particular blessing. And many have, but there are many who have not. So this is something that maybe they could look into.
Could Zen be used by people who cannot make it in traditional life, who cannot face the challenges that many people face, who do not feel that their success in life is warranted? Would they use Zen or any other philosophy or practice as a way of escaping reality and being with people of their own type, their own group?
Well, of course, people who feel lost and who might have difficulty will come do come to the Zendo. I can't say they're escaping reality. You get a big dose of reality when you get there. That's for sure, because you don't have the normal things that everybody leans on: discussion, friendship, conversation. You're doing practice. You're practicing very deep meditation, so you have to really face your body, yourself, your life, each other. But what I've noticed is that many people who do practice with some diligence, they do become much more able to take a job or function or do things in the so-called world.
Mm-hmm.
Others don't define success in the same way. They don't have a secular definition of it: more money, more cars. They're not looking for that.
What are they looking for?
They're looking for peace and for love and for a feeling of meaning in their life and a deeper connection with each other and with God. Or they don't use the word God, but that's the same thing. So yes, people do come in, absolutely. When usually people are hurting, and they've hurt a lot when they come. They've had pain, they've had difficult experiences. That brings, because it's very strong and in a way an extreme practice. So they do, and it's a healing too. I mean, they've also done studies about people sitting. Physical studies, biofeedback studies, and there are really definite changes that go on in the brain when you sit, and it's considered one of the best healings for ADHD, which is, and so many people have that and take medications of all kinds, but it's documented that when people just sit a certain amount, that really regulates and balances and harmonizes so many parts of their nervous system and their brain. So there are all different benefits that people receive from the practice. And yes, of course, when people, they come because they are hurting very often. They may have had somebody passed away, or they just they can't find happiness in the normal ways, the usual ways. And I would say that I've seen so many people over the years, many become much stronger and much better. It's not a place to escape reality. That's not what happens there.
What does happen there? So you sit down and you meditate. So
no, you keep your body in a certain position. It's not like that. It's very strict. You keep your body in a certain position. Once the bell rings, you don't move for 30 minutes, 45 minutes. You might have pain. You might want to get away. You don't. You sit still and you face whatever comes up, including the pain. You experience what's really going on in your body, mind, and life. The bell rings. You do walking meditation. So you bring that concentration into activity, into action. Then you sit again. At our Zendo, we did a total of 3 hours for one night or one sitting. And there were longer periods. People go for a full day, a week, whatever. But it's not you just sit around and dream about something. You don't. You stay concentrated on your breathing. It's a very strict and formal practice, and you don't move. So even if you want to get away, usually if something upsets us, we want to get away. We'll become impulsive. We'll run here. We'll run there. You don't do that. You face whatever it is that's coming up. You see what it is. You experience it. You keep breathing, returning to the breath. And these different memories, sometimes we had many soldiers for a while used to come who had PTSD. A lot of healing from that. It would come up. They would face it. The sadness would come. It would be released, and they could go forward again. So, and then if you go for one night, that was the Zendo I trained in, which was tough. We did 3 hours. Other places do an hour and a half. They're all a little different. Usually a sitting is about 30 minutes. So it's a certain physical strenuousness to it as well. And you learn how to handle physical pain too. You're not running away from it. You're not always looking to make it feel better. You realize it comes and it goes. And you get a lot of strength. There's a lot of strength in it. There's a lot of strength to be had. Not even have to run away from something that's discomforting. You have to sit through it and learn what it is and be with it, and then move on. and
Okay.
move on.
Can't you do that on your own? Can't you do that in your privacy of your own home? Like,
Well,
once again, I'm having problems understanding why this is.
well, you can do it in your own home alone, but it's
Why?
pretty hard to do 3 hours alone, and especially when you're beginning in your own
Mhm.
home without the structure, the support of others there, and
Is it support or discipline?
it's both. It's discipline. It's a lot of discipline and support. That's a good word. It's very disciplined. You do develop very strong discipline because no matter what you want, when the bell rings, you get up. Well, when the time to
Mhm.
sit, you sit. And that's also a very strengthening and a very good thing to have.
Well,
It has many.
It sounds like school,
It is
the bell used to go, you'd go to the next class. The bell used to go, you'd go to the next class.
not quite like that, though.
Well, why would anybody want to sit for an hour and do nothing? Why would anybody want to endure pain? This does
Well,
not make sense to me.
well, you see, the only way to know is to actually try it for yourself and see how you feel after you're sitting and while you're sitting. It's not that you do nothing. It's probably the most active thing I've ever done. It takes the
Really?
most work and the most focus. It's the most intense activity. It's one of the hardest things for anybody to be still.
I understand that, but I'm very happy with who I am.
That's great.
I'm very self-confident.
It's wonderful.
I've got a wonderful family. I've got a great job. So to listen and hear that there are people who have to go through this in order to find themselves, it makes no sense to me.
Okay, I hear that. It's totally not for you. And there are many people who just don't feel the way you feel, and they don't have a great job, or they just have different kinds of issues, perhaps.
Mhm.
The
Interesting.
world is made up of many, many, many kinds of people.
Yes, it is. But what is the difference then? Because I'm trying to find differences between what Zen practice is and what an organized religion is, and I can't see a difference.
Well, it is for many people it is. Many people think it is a religion. This is the difference between it is that there's no theology. There's not a set of beliefs that one has to adhere to.
But there still is the regimented.
It's a practice, a disciplined practice. Yes, 100%. But it's different in that respect. That that usually most religions present doctrine. And you have to read this, you have to believe this, you have to understand that, and people do a lot of study. People do study the sutras, the teachings, but that's really not part of. I mean, it's there, but it's not a big part of Zen practice. And also, there's nothing to believe. There's nothing like that, and there isn't.
Except believing in yourself.
Well, it's not, you do, eventually you do believe in yourself, but it's not a theoretical belief. It's just a sense of more deep aliveness and ability to face many things that come along. It provides that ability to do so. You could call it a religion. You could call it a form of therapy, although it's different from most therapies. You could call it a practice like karate or Tai Chi. You could call it many different things.
I have to call for a commercial break right now, so please stand by. Exonation Dr. Brenda Shoshanna is our guest, brendashoshanna.com, and we'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away. Dr. Brenda, tell us about your book that is Value-Centered Relationships.
Yeah, it's interesting because I wanted to put together the teachings from all the scriptures, all of them, all the world scriptures, including Zen, is part of it, but includes the Old Testament, the New Testament. And I wanted to, because I see so much pain and suffering going on right now, particularly with COVID and all of the different issues going on in our country. And I recognize that many, many, many answers for healing and for peace and for recovery of all kinds are in the scriptures, and they're just not really brought to light and really used in our relationships and our daily interactions with each other. And so, being myself very quarantined here for quite a while, I really dove into all of them, which I love doing. And I put them together to show how we can actually practice them in our life, not just think them and say them, but and how we can really get rid of pain and upset and conflict between people easily when we apply these different laws, which I didn't make them up. They've been there for years. Teachings for healing, teachings for love, how to really be loving, and to separate what I call real love from counterfeit love. But
Give us some examples.
well, okay, I'd be happy to do so. Well, for instance, I have what's called in it the pillars of love, and I'll tell you what some of them are. For instance, it says, when we speak about counterfeit love, I say that all pain in relationships comes not from the other person, but from being caught in the illusion of love, of counterfeit love. And I'll give you an example of it. They say in one of the scriptures, we think that when we're getting married, we're at the peak of our love. We're so happy, we're in love, we're thrilled, everyone is celebrating. But the scripture says, no, that's not the peak of your love. It's just the beginning. Mm-hmm. Your partner is your teacher in what it means to love. I thought, wow, that is so beautiful. And so I take that a step further and I say, everyone you meet is your teacher in what it means to love everyone. And so one of the exercises that I make a lot of these into exercises so people can do it, simple, direct exercises. So one of the exercises I suggest is, say you're with someone and you're having some kind of a conflict with them, and do this in your mind quietly, just stop and kind of a little bit to them, then bow to them a little and say, thank you for being my teacher in what it means to love. Right away, you're not getting into that dance of anger. That person's there to teach you what it means to love. And then you could say to them, it's a beautiful moment. You don't see them as an enemy or as someone you have to engage with in an angry way. And then the next thing I suggest you say to them is, I grant you the right to be who you are. And that is an act of love. And then you're able to just, your energy changes, the way you view them changes. And it's another very important teaching from scripture that we know is to see the best in everyone, which is judge everyone favorably. So rather than see what's wrong, one of the things that we stop, thank you for being my teacher and what it means to love, and we look for what's beautiful in that person. And, as you see someone, that's what you bring out in them. If you're going to see the worst in them, you'll get a lot of anger, and people pick it up. They will pick it up, how you're feeling and how you're perceiving them. So that's another one of the things we do, is to stop. And so that's one. I could talk about it a lot. I love talking about it because actually the whole point of this book is that you cannot be truly loving and upset at the same time. You cannot. And what counterfeit love is.
Hold on here.
It's a definition from the scriptures.
I disagree with that, because a father, like I'm a father, I've got 6 kids and I've got 15 grandchildren. I have 2 great-grandchildren. And I'll tell you something, sometimes grandpa or dad gets really upset, but dad still loves. In fact, I have a problem with God himself, because he talks out of the side of his mouth, because he says, thou shalt not kill, the 10 commandments, right? And yet, how many people did he kill in the Bible because they didn't agree with him? Well, so how can you use the Bible as an example when there's so much hate, there's so much anger, there's so much control? I don't get it.
Well, it depends. I have the same problem. I don't have that concept. That's not my understanding of what God is. I don't accept that God has every word in the Bible. That's one of the reasons I went to Zen. I don't take it in a literal way. To me, God is love, is actually the experience of love. And when
I agree. The God of the New Testament is much more loving than the God of the Old Testament.
Well, that's just what people wrote down. There's only, both the New Testament and the Old Testament, there's one Father. there's one God.
Well, wait a sec. If we say that that's what people wrote down, are we saying that God did not write the Bible? Are we saying that the Bible is based on the perception of the person who wrote the story?
No, I'm not
What are we
saying that.
saying?
I'm not saying that. I mean, I'm not getting into that whole biblical issue, which I know is a very vital issue, vivid issue these days. But what I say is that it's true. Many things in the Bible sound horrifying, and which is one of the reasons that people have withdrawn from religion, unfortunately. But in my view, both the Old Testament and the New Testament, from which it springs, is actually the way I have always perceived God is as love itself, and I always was very wondering why people who were so religious in all the different religions often lacked kindness toward one another. And there's many horrible things that have happened to people in the name of God.
Sure.
So that has always been that's been something that I've not just struggled with, but I've dealt with. I have 11 grandchildren too, and I have gotten very upset with them. And what I mean by being loving, I don't mean and not upset. Of course you get upset, and of course you love them, you care about them, but we're talking about something different. I'm talking about an interaction between two people, and even with your grandchild, who might be very disturbing to you, the question is, what's the most powerful and positive way of interacting with them to resolve that situation? You can love them very much, of course, be connected to them, feel attached to them, want the best for them. We want the best for them. But
Sure.
the question, of course, and the question is, what's the best way to make that happen? And my point in the book is the best way to do it is through really putting forth and implementing these different deeds of love, acts of love, but I define love. I define it. I mean, I don't define it, but when I say the difference between real love and counterfeit love, by counterfeit love, so many people think, oh, I'm in love, I'm excited, I'm attracted, this is love, or I'm dependent on you, or I can't live without you. That's not love that's attachment.
All right, stand by. We've got to take our final break.
Okay.
www.brendashoshanna.com is her website. We'll be back. Don't go away. And we're back. Dr. Brenda Shoshanna is our guest. Her website is brendashoshanna.com. We've talked about Zen. We've talked about love. We've talked about the Bible. We've talked about people who according to you, have been able to get back on the right path of life, enrich their life, their love, and so on. You also mentioned counterfeit love.
Yeah.
Could counterfeit love actually be the beginning of true love?
I don't think so.
Why?
Well, for instance, counterfeit love would be something. Something like somebody giving it's like counterfeit giving. You're giving because you want something back in return. So you're always worrying, what are they going to It's more like a transaction, whereas to give with a full heart and an open heart, not wondering what am I going to get from them, how am I going to use them. Actually, counterfeit love makes a person into an object to fill your needs. That's the basic difference, rather than in someone to join with and to honor and to see the face of God in, to have an encounter, a really meaningful encounter with. So it's very, most people who, when they get in painful situations in relationships, and they can be very painful, divorces, all kinds of stuff, it's because, and that can be turned around if they realize that another person can be used. Another person's there to care for, to love, to nourish. I have a lot of different ways, and that's not me, but it's in all the teachings of how to take care of others and give to others in a way that's good for you and good for them. And that's basically what counterfeit love is. It's just all about me, me, me. Give me, give me, give me, give me, give me. And if you don't give me, goodbye. That's a very narcissistic and a very greedy, grasping way, which causes the problems, which cause. So we just turn it around rather than to constantly think about yourself. It's
But
just
one,
to
but
give
once,
to others.
but once again, doctor, the people I know don't think like that.
Oh, you're very, you're
Like,
very
is it that I'm very fortunate, or that those people who have those experiences are very unfortunate, or that they haven't tried hard enough, or they themselves are screwing up royally, and that they're the exception, not the rule?
No, they're not the exception.
How do you know that, ma'am?
Well, I would say that, especially given here what's going on in America, in the United States, and my years and years, of course, as you working with patients and clients and meeting, and oh my God, seeing, I'm working in hospice and working with suicidal patients and so
Sure.
forth.
Okay.
I've seen.
But that's not the norm.
Well, I'm not going to say everybody is like that, certainly, but there is a great deal of suffering going on right now.
Sure, there is. I agree.
It's impossible to deny that. And whether I'm not saying if it is the norm, I'm sure there are many people who don't operate that way and don't feel that way. But this is addressed to people who need to get out of conflict and get out of pain and get out of it quickly and easily. And, even families who are in hospice, I mean, with losing someone, that's a very, especially during the COVID, oh my God, there's so much of it that I was particularly confronted with. And I felt a very strong need to find ways to offer ways for healing. That's all. That's something that's always been very important to me. Maybe you're right. I'm not saying it's the norm or not the norm. I'm just saying that this is the work I've been doing, is to help those who are in need and are suffering in their relationships, which many people are. And maybe not the norm. Maybe there are many who are not. That would be great. That'd be wonderful to know that. But my personal...
I understand that you're working within a box of pain, a box that there's a lot of sorrow, a lot of anguish. But what about the outside world?
I don't know what you call the outside world. To me, what I've seen, even most of the people that, again, it's just my personal experience of it. So it could be a very limited, but I don't think it's so limited.
All right, Doctor, I want to thank you so much for joining us. And Exxon Nation, if you'd like to find out more about Dr. Brenda Shoshanna, her website is brendashoshanna.com. I adamantly disagree with the doctor. I think that people are a lot stronger. I think it's the weak who seek an easy way out, not the strong. The strong face it. Sure, you need help sometimes, but you go to this place and you put yourself in pain to make yourself better. And I don't know. It sounds like a whole bunch of bunk to me. Take it for what it's worth. I certainly don't agree with anything she said. Hell, I know people who have come up against mountains in their relationships, and they've had the common sense to work it out. And I think there were a few things during the conversation where she suggested that you give, when you say, I give you permission or something like that, that's very condescending. Makes no sense to me, but what the hell? You are listening, you are watching. Send me your comments, Exxon at exxonradiotv.com. I'll be back on the other side of this break at the top of the hour, so don't go away.